Hello everyone, wherever you may be in the world, and welcome to this presentation and session about making visibility a shared responsibility in higher education. My name is Gus, and I'm a digital marketer specialized in the education sector, and I support small marketing teams worldwide, really from Singapore to New York and lots of Europeans in between, with coaching, training, advice, and hands-on support. I'm also the author of this book, and this book is called Genuinely Helpful, and it really focuses on how you can make your university website more effective in a very hands-on and practical way. And a lot of what's in this presentation originally comes from the book. You can actually download it on my website for free, and since you're here you also have the chance to buy the hard copy with 20% discount if you should like so. So let's get to it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about why SEO is relevant to pretty much anyone who is in the content field, but also what SEO is and what it isn't. And then I plan to spend the bulk of the time talking about two case studies, because it's one thing to know that I need to do more about SEO, but it's a completely different thing to make it happen in a complex organizational setting like a university, where there may be a lot of resistance. And there are two cases where they've taken a very different approach, one starting just by doing stuff, the other in a very planned way that actually managed to make a very significant change for the institution. So these case studies are also in my book, and we will discuss them here. So, but before we do that, it's useful to ask ourselves, why do we even care about SEO? Isn't SEO something that is, gone out of date? And I would argue that no, there are several reasons why SEO, or more in general, why taking good care of your website is super important as an institution. It's not the most sexy thing. It's not, it doesn't have vendors to it. You're not going to see a lot of that, being advertised at conferences, but it really is the foundation. First of all, your website has your brand name on it. It's the only place, the only domain where you really control what is being shown about you. You can be active on social media, but in the end, it's the policies of Meta or LinkedIn or wherever else you are that determine what content is visible and how you are being presented. And also anyone can present on those domains, but your web domain is exclusively yours. And when people really need reliable, up-to-date data, they will still rely on your website. Even if people search through ChatGPT or other LLMs, those LLMs will come to your website to feed. So it's important that you still take care of that and make sure that that works well. Student journeys have become a lot more complex over the years, and the illustration here actually will show you that even though there are a lot of different study portal websites, as well as advertising sources and social media sources, you do see that once people actually want to know more, want to move into action mode, they will at some point hit your website. So that means that at that point you can really reel them in and show a consistent and easy to digest picture of what you have to offer. Or you could also turn them off by being unclear and being just hard to understand. So it's important that your website is a welcoming place that serves its purpose. And as as the website is well designed, it can also become a magnet for the right people through, for example, search optimization. So 3 reasons there to still spend time and effort making your website a welcoming place. Now, is SEO dead? If we look at the data, this is done a compilation of data from various sources by Jess Schultz, who is an SEO consultant, and this is generic overall data, so it's not specific to the education sector. And you see that on the daily basis, Google, and then I mean the old-fashioned traditional Google, gets some 12 billion searches. And then it's followed by AI overviews, which are the little AI summaries that Google sometimes shows. Those get 1.8 billion searches. They happen on Google as well. Then you see a bunch of social media in which people search. Then Google is AI mode, and only a fraction of this at the moment is ChatGPT. Now, I have this suspicion that among prospective students, the usage of LLMs like ChatGPT is already a lot higher, just because they are young and they are used to using LLMs for solving their problems. But the world hasn't changed overnight. Even if this new technology is available, we should also keep in mind that it won't change things overnight, and not run too far ahead of the masses. But besides that, we have a bunch of different frameworks that we have to wrap our heads around, and one of those is technical SEO, which entails making your website easy to digest, not just for people, but also for the bots and the crawlers from search engines that try to understand what's on your website and how all the content relates to each other. Then another SEO discipline or sub-discipline is building authority, which means making sure other websites actually link to you. And of course, content is super important as well. I'll dig into this a lot deeper. And together, you could say these will make up search engine optimization, or you could say these make up making a good website. But you have also a discipline that's called accessibility, and accessibility requires a lot of the same factors, technical factors, as well as content factors that also are important for search engine optimization. For example, if someone accesses your website, they're sight impaired and they're accessing your website through a screen reader, then they would need to see clear headings, they would need to see meta titles, they would need to see alt tags on the images, because they can't know what's on the images. That helps search engines, but it also helps people with screen readers. So as you see, there is a lot of overlap. Accessibility is important, but it also greatly overlaps with search engine optimization. PR, another content discipline, can interrelate very much with authority building and link building. If you get featured in national media, for example, then that can greatly increase the credibility of you as an institution, and perhaps even make that national media link back to your domain. So you need to have content that resonates for that, and it can potentially build the authority of your website. So again, there is overlap. And fortunately, when we talk about generative engine optimization or optimizing for AI search, then we see that yes, we will need to do some things differently. I won't go into the detail because that's really not the topic of this talk, but essentially a lot of the things we need to take care of are the same as SEO. So let's go a little deeper into these 3 elements that are needed to optimize your website, and they are, first of all, content strategy. And I actually liken these 3 factors to a road trip. And when you want to do a road trip, you do need 3 things, and you need these 3 things, all of them, or the whole thing falls apart. The first thing you need is a destination. So you need to know where you're going. And so in a road trip, obviously that is the place where you're going to be headed to, and also perhaps some of the steps in between. In content strategy, it would be which kind of topic do you want to be visible for. That is the first requirement. Then, to state the obvious, you will need a car, or you need at least some form of transportation. That would be technical SEO. So even if your content plan is perfect, if your website has some technical flaws which make it hard for crawlers to actually access it and compile what is happening on your website and what it's about, then it won't really help. So this is actually my car on the road trip in Italy, and my car is old, but it's serving me very well. It so far hasn't died on me. And it's the same for websites. It doesn't always mean that you need a new website. Many older websites can be perfect foundation for search engine optimization, but it depends on how they are being set up. And finally, you need fuel, because even the car without fuel won't get you anywhere. And it is the same with SEO. And with websites, you need others to endorse you, because SEO, or how Google works, is that it actually looks at how many other websites talk about you and refer to you, and that lends credibility to your website and to your institution. So SEO isn't just technical expertise, even though that is often the idea. And there is not one person that you can make responsible for SEO, and that is going to make everything happen, because it's just, the domain is too large. The number of topics that you want to be found for is extremely wide, and you need to work together with people who can cover, say, the technical part, the content part, as well as the PR part. And it also means that different university websites need something else. Generally, university websites have an easy time being mentioned in media. There's of course lots happening in institutions, and it's interesting to link to that. So authority is usually not the problem, and we'll see that in our next case study as well, where the University of Rochester was actually missing the relevance in the content, and once they got that working, then everything took off. So it's often about determining where to focus your efforts, because if two of the things are already in place but one thing is missing, then that's what you should be focusing on. Now, how do you get the budget to actually do some SEO? Believe me, I have tried that many times as an SEO consultant, of course, and this is kind of the classical slide that any SEO consultant will show. It will say, hey, you can choose. You can spend money on Google Ads. You will be visible tomorrow. You will get clicks, and pretty soon you hopefully will figure out a way to make those clicks convert into enrolled students or into inquiries that are relevant, and so there will be a return on investment. However, the return on investment with advertising is always limited, because you're going to be paying for every single click, and the moment you stop paying, then the whole thing dies down. Whereas for search engine optimization, you have to lay the fundamentals there. You need to spend more time making your website actually truly attractive to search engines and to basically anyone who wants to talk about it. But once you lay that foundation, then people will keep coming to your website, and you can start focusing on other topics and other pages. Of course, you need to do some maintenance, but you don't have to pay when someone visits you, so your traffic will keep growing and the return on investment will keep growing. But this is the theory, and I discovered the hard way that this is not enough of an argument to secure the budget for a huge SEO project. And why is that? I think there are two reasons for that. One is time lag. So it takes time, perhaps 6 months or a year, before you see real payoff of your efforts. But in the meantime, you can't afford for your pipeline to get empty. Like, you have a class to fill this year. You can't wait until next. So until your SEO house is finished, you will still be paying rent for your advertising apartment. So essentially, you're paying double rent, and that hurts. And no matter how much you emphasize this in initial presentations, people do tend to forget. Say 3 months in, people will say, I'm not seeing any results from all of our efforts. Should we not stop this, because it may just be a waste of money? And so if you're having these conversations, make sure that they are documented in presentations and you can point back to them. That often does wonders to really have a tangible proof and say, hey, I told you that this would take time, and not just 3 months, but longer, like we're now at this point, and we can only expect results later. And there's also, of course, uncertainty, like investing in a better website. As content professionals, we know that it can pay off in many different ways, and not just talking about more traffic, but also more clarity, fewer confused people, fewer questions. And even if the game of search engine optimization changes, it's not like you will keep doing the same thing. Once you start this effort, you will keep learning. But you have to forgive people that hold the money, the financial people, to not just trust you for that. They are trained to see where they can reduce uncertainty. So let's discuss some ways of reducing this uncertainty for them, so that they will be more comfortable supporting you. And one option is to actually not ask for a specific SEO budget in the first place, because you don't need permission to work with everyone who publishes on the website, and perhaps get them to tweak their approach a little bit. You don't need permission to have a conversation with IT and see what upgrades that they're about to do and how you could slot in certain technical SEO things. Perhaps you need a little budget for doing a technical SEO audit, so that you understand how well your website is currently performing and where the opportunities are to improve it. And some things might be easy to do, and other things might need to wait until the next major upgrade. And we'll talk about that actually in the University of Vienna case study. You also don't need permission to build SEO into PR and communications. So you can, if let's say a new study is published and PR is talking about that, you could host certain documents or resources about the study on your website and include a link in the press release, and hopefully some media will pick it up and they might actually link back to your website, and that could lead to you gaining a lot of links, and with that a lot of endorsements from the overall web. So the one thing you need for this is to be persuasive. You need to persuade people, you need to persuade the right people, and work together. And we'll talk about how that was done at the University of Rochester by our keynote speaker at contentEd, Brian Piper, who joined the University of Rochester in 2017. And he told me in an interview for my book that he spotted a huge opportunity just hours after joining. He realized that many of the schools have huge domain authority, so a lot of websites are linking to them, but content creation wasn't very SEO aware at the time. And he decided to work with the news center. So he made friends with the leader of the news center and said, hey, can I pick a couple of key articles and slightly rewrite them so that they surface for relevant search terms? And typically, until that point, the pattern was that anytime an article gets published, there's a huge spike because it gets shared across social media properties, etc., and then it kind of dies down and there is no long-term traffic going to these articles. So he optimized a number of key articles and managed to double the traffic to the news center, which you see in the image, in its current state. He managed to double the traffic within 6 months. And this is how it looks if you compare 2017-18 to 2022-23. So Brian was kind enough to share this information with me. It's directly from their Google Analytics. And as you see, the orange portion is search traffic and the blue portion is the rest of the traffic. And it didn't stop at doubling the traffic, let's put it that way. Because there is potential to do a lot more once you become aware of what the best practices are and once you consistently apply them. But this is not at all where Brian and his team stopped. They just really wanted to have a success story to show people that we can provide real results. And they use that to invite staff for training, starting with central comms, faculty or school comms, and then even departments. Anyone basically who is publishing on the website would be invited, and they were asked to bring their own content or pieces that they were thinking about, and they were taught to look at keywords, do some keyword research, and then slightly tweak the articles. And this works very well if you already have a lot of content and it's completely not SEO optimized. There's often a lot of low-hanging fruit. And then eventually it moved to being a bit more proactive and actually doing keyword research to find out what their students or their other audiences would need, and making sure there is content to actually meet those needs. And the key message was that if you spend 10 to 15 minutes on keyword research before starting to write, then another 10 to 15 minutes before you hit publish, you can increase your readership by 10 to 20 times. So it's really well worth the effort. And that is a message that they just kept repeating and repeating. And I don't have statistics for the entire impact of this effort since 2017, but you can imagine that it's a whole bunch of extra news center sites. And besides that, they do other things. So they also provide technical SEO analysis and advice. They made available some tools. Many of these tools, if you don't use them a lot and you just do a few searches per day, then they can be free, such as SEMrush or Answer the Public or Google Search Console. But they also work with schools to create analytics dashboards. Google Analytics 4 tends to be too complicated. Like, a lot of people get lost, including seasoned marketers. But with Looker Studio, for example, you can take that data and present it in a much more digestible and simple way. And especially they found out what are meaningful conversions, what are meaningful actions that people take on your website, such as filling in an inquiry form or connecting to, let's say, a student ambassador. And they made sure to report these, because you can tell people that this is the way to get more traffic, but if you double the traffic and no one sees it, then it hasn't really happened, and it doesn't provide enough motivation to really keep going. Whereas the real value is in keeping going. And the learning that Brian shared with me is that it takes about 2 months before you see results when you start doing your content differently. and you can double the traffic of your website in about 6 months. The learnings from this case study are really that you don't need permission to work on discoverability. It helps if you build an early success story, so you find something sufficiently well defined and small, and someone who is open to do this, you work with them to build success, and then you share that story, and you can slowly get others on board as well. And you can empower them through advice and training. So the downside of this approach is that in a structure that is decentralized, it tends to be a bit inefficient in terms of marketing. Everyone is kind of reinventing the wheel. So anytime a new school website is needed, then the school decides which web developer to use, which framework to use. And there may be some general branding guidelines, but a lot of the work is duplicated. So the team didn't manage to change that, and that's of course a very fundamental issue. That is hard to change, and sometimes it's really good to pick your battles, but they didn't manage to get a bigger say in the marketing, which could still leave a lot of freedom for the schools, but which might smooth out a lot of double work. So let's go to another case that is almost the opposite, and that's the University of Vienna. The University of Vienna is a huge institution. In fact, it's the largest university in the German-speaking world with 85,000 students, 20 different faculties and centers. And compared to the University of Rochester, it is fairly centralized. So they have a fairly strong overall communications department, HR, and also IT department. And they found themselves in a situation where there was an IT-driven upgrade. So the website runs on a CMS that's called Typo 3, and the version 6 was deployed in 2017, and they knew that by around 2027 they would have to move to version 12. The motivation for that was first of all purely IT driven. Like security wise, there was simply no support anymore for the older version, but the team decided that now that we're at it, we should also improve page speed and crawlability, have a look at the UI, the UX, and especially the old website was not mobile friendly by design. Like, you know, they were trying to make it happen, but it was difficult. The school was also on a legal obligation to comply with accessibility standards, with the WCAG 2.1 standard. And they also wanted to restructure the content because the way the old website was structured was really according to the organizational structure of the institution. So you have the central homepage, and then you have the different faculties, and within the faculties you have the departments and all that. And that doesn't always make sense. You're actually talking to different personas, such as prospective students, current students, academics, and it would make a lot more sense to plan the website according to that. And since you're redoing everything anyway, then you know that will be a good approach to improve it. And what they met was a lot of organizational complexity. We're talking here about a main website which has over 1,500 instances in total, and every instance is basically a subdomain. So that includes faculties, institutes, interfaculty collaborations, research projects, conference. Anything that has its own website is an instance, and there are 1,500 of them, and they all had to move from version 6 to version 12. Central Comms only controls a few instances, including the homepage. And of course, different unit types have different needs. from a very simple conference to the university library that is of course super complex. And besides that, on the project side, the revamp project was a collaboration between comms, IT, and HR. HR doing the training for the staff to work with this new platform. So the team decided to start with the infrastructure first. They upgraded the intranet so that everyone could post on it, and it wasn't a one-way thing where the comms department put stuff. Now, this was important infrastructure to have in place during the project, but it also helped them to get some early experience with how you actually should go about this project, get some of the major players already involved and kind of have an early learning experience. Then they ran a pre-project. So before they actually went for the big tender, they ran several workshops with the key website editors. So any of these instances would have an editor. Some editors might be responsible for multiple instances. Some editors would be occasional. Let's say if it's an annual event, the person needs access, but it's not really a major part of their job. But in some cases, it would be a very significant part of the editor's job. And they asked the question, like, what would your ideal homepage look like? And they realized, that a faculty, for example, has a specific structure that works well for it, but it wouldn't work well to put the library in the same kind of a structure and use the same page templates. So they defined exactly which parts, which templates were necessary, and that helped to shape the requirements that then went into the RFP. Then they got started, or at least the plan at the time I did the interview. Nothing had been deployed yet. Right now I can see that the homepage is all already deployed. But this is really a marathon, and you need to pace yourself to be able to make it through all the way to the end. So the team decided that for the first few instances they will have an agile approach, where it was managed by comms and they could actually iron out all the issues that are guaranteed to happen. Whereas later deployments will be a lot more linear, and they will really be scheduled so that faculties and any of the organization units, they already know a year ahead that they have to recruit extra staff to be able to make this transition to a new website, because even today it's still a lot of manual work. So over time, as the learning cycles sort of have come to an end, the comms role will shift more to staff training and support rather than actually running the projects. And that's sort of how they did it. So in short, you can use the IT bandwagon. Let's say if you feel that or you know that your website has certain technical flaws, go and talk to IT today, or let's say tomorrow, since you're now at a conference. But reach out to them, and perhaps there's already an upgrade in the works. But if you hear about an upgrade coming, it's probably too late. So get in touch with them, build in time to learn. Don't assume that you can plan everything ahead of time. There's definitely going to be mess ups, so it's better to budget some time for that. And when you're comfortable, then you can go into full implementation mode. What I missed a little bit in this approach is also taking the opportunity to optimize the student journey. So we hear about workshops with the web editors, and that is all still very neatly inside the communications box. But we also know that prospective students and as applicants, they move through a whole journey. They may have to interact with many different departments, and there can be a lot of confusion along the way. And this student journey may also be hard to change because of the way a website is set up. So when you're in the process of setting up a new website, that's also a good time to look at it not only through the editor's eyes, but also through the student's eyes. And perhaps they have done this, or they have done it in an indirect way, because the editors also of course try to make their website better. Of course, also when you do involve more departments, it gets even more complex, but it will set a very stable framework for the website. So it's about time to move to a conclusion, and I just would like you to think about your next steps. And one way to think about this is to think of whether your situation is closer to that of Rochester or Vienna. And also, you may have heard some things that you can get started with tomorrow. So I'm very curious what those things are, and perhaps we can discuss them in the discussion that will follow.